I think the 4 years as opposed to the 2 years is important because, as we know, economic development is not something that happens overnight. It takes time to build relationships. We can use the example of Joe in the tourism industry, and he works to bring, like conferences and conventions in. And so they're already working on things that are happening in 2022 or 2023 to try to get those things in. So to not have that continuity, to have that uncertainty, I think was why I was opposed to the 2 years. Not opposed to the review, but again, if we have a review that comes back and says we need to change this model, we don't want to give ourselves such a short runway to transition to an entirely new model. So I thought the 4 years made sense from both like the staff perspective, the continuity perspective, and then if we do decide to do something different, we have enough leeway time to make sure that we do it right and that we don't implement something because, oh no, our contract's up and we need to have something else in place.
Now, there was some intimation, though, from Councillor Parnell that there's some stakeholder whom she did not name, and that discussion was quickly derailed, right? That wants to bring Cavan Monaghan and the city back to the table to talk about annexation. And she was pretty specific in saying that this would involve allowing the airport to be within city boundaries. So what's going on there?
So yeah, I mean, there's some stuff that is still, like, there's a reason why land negotiations sometimes aren't out in the public. I can say that I'm meeting with Mayor McFadden on Monday for coffee and to chat about what's going on. When you get third parties involved in municipal land transactions, that's sometimes problematic as well. So, we've have relationships with all the townships that surround Peterborough because we know, we know that we need more employment lands, and our neighbors all agree, like, yeah, we need more employment lands, and they want to see us have that because if we succeed, then they succeed, right? Because those jobs go to people not just in Peterborough, but folks that come in from the county to work in those jobs. So there's a lot going on that front, which is very exciting. But as we know, the previous iteration of that deal took a couple decades to get where it is. But I'm hoping that we can sort of start with like fresh eyes and fresh minds on what's going to be to the betterment of the region overall.
What I don't understand is how that original agreement, I understand how it got derailed, but I don't understand why. I don't understand why the current council, if there is such a concern about jobs, and there is and should be, won't just step back and say, okay, we had talked about paying this, $2 million a year over 20 years, starting right now. They were good with that, Cavan Monaghan. We said we want to delay those payments, pay the same amount of money over a shorter period of time down the road a bit. That killed it. So why not just say, okay, we were wrong, let's go back to that 20 years and do it. Are they still willing to sign on to that? I would think they would be.
Well, I think part of the issue was that, that there was a lot of folks on council and that weren't the staff directly involved in that deal who also felt that deal was just too much money. And when we asked about just the refinancing piece and then they just walked away, all we were asking was, well, we need to figure out on our end because then we're going to have to still do all the servicing and do all of that.
But if all you're going to do is that change in the financing schedule, it's a pretty small change for the size of the project. I was surprised that to me, quite small difference hung the whole thing up, and it has hung it up for going on 3 years now.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for anyone at Cavan Monaghan. I can say that myself and there were others around the table when that came forward who felt that the deal was too rich, and I know from staff people that agreed with that.
So you're thinking now you wouldn't even go to because the offer was to still pay them the same amount of money over a different period of time. Do you think that's still on the table for this current city council?
It could be. I think that we're trying to have all cards on the table right now. Like, ultimately, we want to see something happen. Contexts have changed, circumstances have changed, councils have changed, so we want to come back and work together as friends and neighbors.
And the one thing with that, I mean, in that deal, some people had some issues with it. I mean, really, the city was going to pay a large, massive sum of money to take on the responsibility for bridges and roads.
Bridges and roads.
And not actually own the land. I think that sometimes gets missed. But you know, if you've got a regional economic development group looking to bring in new jobs, and we've had the GE closure, the Sears closure, and some others. There's been growth in other areas, and I think that the regional cooperation model needs to see that it goes beyond charging each other massive amounts of money to take that on. So
yeah, and we can have conversations about cross-border servicing and what does that look like, and there are models out there that have been done in other jurisdictions. So it doesn't necessarily need to be land for money.
You said you're going to be talking to Mayor McFadden. Do you get a sense that there is some softening out in Cavan Monaghan? Because I mean, they were very adamant that it's the deal that our staff worked out with your staff with a little bit of political input or no deal.
Yeah, I mean, that was a few years ago now, so, but I mean, I'll report back after Monday.
Okay.
I'll be back next Wednesday.